The Three Billy Goats Gruff. Once, high on a hillside, there lived three billy goats named Gruff. There was little Billy Goat Gruff, middle Billy Goat Gruff, and great big Billy Goat Gruff. There was not much grass on the hillside, but there was a meadow full of sweet green grass across the river. The three Billy Goats Gruff wanted to eat the sweet green grass. To get to the meadow, they had to cross a bridge. But under this bridge lived a great, big, horrible troll. Even so, little Billy Goat Gruff decided to cross the bridge. Trip, trap, went his little hooves on the stone bridge. Suddenly, with a thump and a bump, up popped the horrible troll. "Who is that trip-tropping across my bridge?" growled the troll. "It's only me, little Billy Goat Gruff," trembled the goat. "I'm coming to gobble you up," shouted the troll. "Oh, please don't eat me," said little Billy Goat Gruff. "I'm very little and very skinny. Wait for my brother, middle Billy Goat Gruff. He's much bigger than me and will taste a much tastier meal." So the troll let little Billy Goat Gruff go, and he trip-trapped across the bridge to the green grassy meadow. When middle Billy Goat Gruff saw his brother eating the sweet green grass, he decided he would cross the bridge too. Trip-trap, went his middle-sized hooves on the stone bridge. Suddenly, with a crash and a smash, up jumped the horrible troll. "Who is trip-trapping across my bridge?" he bellowed. "It's me, middle Billy Goat Gruff," said the goat. "Aha!" cried the troll. "Your brother told me about you. I'm coming to gobble you up." "Don't bother eating me," said middle Billy Goat Gruff. "Wait for my brother, great big Billy Goat Gruff. He is very big and very fat, and I'm sure he will be very tasty." "All right," snored the troll. So middle Billy Goat Gruff trip-trapped across the bridge to the green grassy meadow. Then along came great big Billy Goat Gruff. Trip-trap, went his big great hooves on the stone bridge. With a racket and a rumble, a bang and a clang, up clambered the horrible troll. "Who is trip-trapping across my bridge?" he roared. "It's me, great big Billy Goat Gruff," said the goat. "I'm coming to gobble you up," shouted the troll. "Oh no, you're not," said great big Billy Goat Gruff, stamping his great big hooves. He lowered his head, ran at the troll, and hit him with his great big horns. Splash! The troll fell right into the river. Then great big Billy Goat Gruff went trip-trap across the bridge to join his brothers. They munched the sweet green grass in the meadow, and they all grew big and happy. No one ever saw the big horrible troll again. Paddington and the Grand Tour. One morning Paddington answered the doorbell at number 32 Windsor Gardens, and to his surprise he found his best friend, Mr. Gruber, waiting outside. "I've decided to treat myself to an outing, Mr. Brown," he said, "and I was wondering if you would care to join me." Paddington was very excited. He always enjoyed his days out with Mr. Gruber, and he didn't need asking twice. In no time at all, he returned with his suitcase full of marmalade sandwiches ready for the journey, along with Mrs. Bird's umbrella in case it rained. They hadn't gone very far when Paddington spotted a bench. "Perhaps we ought to eat our sandwiches now, Mr. Gruber," he said. If it rains, they might get wet. While they had stopped, Mr. Gruber showed Paddington some photographs of the places he wanted to visit. "I thought we might go on what's called a hop-on, hop-off bus," said Mr. Gruber. "You can come and go as you like, so it's possible to see lots of different sights with only one ticket." "I don't think I've ever been on one of those before," said Paddington as they went on their way. "It sounds very good value." But as they turned a corner and Paddington saw the waiting bus, he nearly fell over backwards with alarm, for part of the roof was missing. "I think the driver must have gone under a very low bridge by mistake," he exclaimed. Mr. Gruber laughed. "Don't worry, Mr. Brown. It's made that way so that passengers have a good view of the sights. If you wait here and form a queue," he continued, "I'll get the tickets. Then we can make sure of the seats in the front row." "That's a good idea," said an inspector. "The early bird catches the worm, and I'm expecting a large party of assorted overseas visitors any moment now." "Perhaps I can interest you in one of these booklets telling you all about the trip," said the inspector. "It comes in lots of different languages." Paddington was most impressed. "Thank you very much," he said. "I'd like one in Peruvian, please." "Peruvian?" repeated the man. "I'm afraid we don't get much call for that." "You don't get much call for it?" exclaimed Paddington. "Everybody speaks it in the darkest Peru. You don't even have to call out." He gave the man a hard stare. "Wait here," said the inspector nervously. "I'll see what I can do." No sooner had the inspector disappeared than Paddington saw a crowd approaching. So he raised Mrs. Bird's umbrella in case he had a job of finding him again. "I'm sorry we're late," panted the leader of the group. "We got held up." Paddington politely raised his hat. "That's all right," he began. "We can't all be early birds. I'm forming a queue." Before he had time to say any more, he found himself being pushed to one side as there was a mad scramble to board the bus. Paddington watched in dismay as everyone on the top deck began fighting for the front row seats. "I wouldn't sit there if I were you," he called. "There may still be some worms." But he was wasting his breath, so he tried again. "Excuse me," he called. Lifting one leg, he waved the umbrella. "It's a hop-on bus, and I'm afraid the 2 front seats upstairs are reserved." "Hold it, you guys!" The leader gave a loud blast on his whistle. "You're supposed to hop everywhere, okay? Pass it down the line." "What happens now?" came a voice when everyone was settled. Paddington considered the matter for a moment. "I'm not sure," he replied. "I shall need to ask Mr. Gruber, but I think you look at the view, then you hop off again." "View?" wailed someone. "What view?" Their voices were lost in the general commotion as the leader blew several more blasts on his whistle and issued fresh instructions. "I came on this trip to see the sights," protested a lady as she staggered off the bus. "Not become one." "I'm worn out," gasped another, collapsing into her husband's arms, "and we haven't been anywhere yet." A number of passers-by stopped to watch, and several children joined in the fun. Soon the whole pavement was alive with figures. Paddington tried closing his eyes, but whenever he opened them, more people had arrived. He was very relieved when he spied a familiar figure pushing his way through the crowd towards him. "Are you all right, Mr. Brown?" called Mr. Gruber. "This place looks like a battlefield." It feels like one, Mr. Gruber, said Paddington. I was trying to save our seats in the front row, but I'm afraid I wasn't quick enough. The inspector gave me this booklet, said Mr. Gruber. He said he's very sorry it's in English, but he suggested we find somewhere quiet to read it until the fuss has died down. There's a little cafe over there. I'll hurry on ahead and reserve a table. Mr. Gruber hadn't gone very far before Paddington felt a spot of rain on the end of his nose, so he stopped to open the umbrella. Almost immediately he heard a whistle and a voice shouting, "Follow him, you guys! Don't let him out of your sight!" Paddington hurried on his way as fast as his legs would carry him. Even so, he only just managed to reach the cafe ahead of the others. "Quick, Mr. Brown!" hissed a voice from behind some potted plants. "Over here! There's some cocoa on the way." "I should be careful with your sips, Mr. Brown," warned Mr. Gruber, as a waitress arrived with 2 steaming mugs. "It looks very hot, and they may give the game away." "I don't know about my sips, Mr. Gruber," gasped Paddington as the crowd burst through the door. "I'm beginning to wish I'd brought my disguise outfit." "There you are!" cried the leader. "I've never known a tour captain so hard to keep up with." "Tour captain?" repeated Paddington. "You were holding up your umbrella," said the man. "That's what tour captains always do. It's so that people don't get lost." "I'm not your tour captain," said Paddington hotly. "I'm a bear." The crowd fell silent as they took in the news. "You mean we've been doing all that hopping around for nothing?" complained one of the party. "I thought it was some quaint old English custom." "What are we going to do now?" cried somebody else. "We've missed our bus." Paddington looked out of the window at the rain and then at his booklet. "I think I've got an idea coming on," he announced. After explaining what he had in mind, he waited for the others to settle down. Then, while Mr. Gruber held up his pictures one by one, Paddington read from the booklet. If the words didn't always match up with the pictures, no one seemed to mind, and at the end, as the sun came out again, they all applauded. "That was the best tour I've ever been on," said someone amid general agreement. "I didn't know Buckingham Palace was over 60 metres high," said a lady as the party began to leave. "I'm afraid it got mixed up with Nelson's column by mistake," explained Paddington. "It's a bit difficult with paws, and I must have turned over 2 pages at once." "Never mind," said a man. "The exercise has done us all good. I haven't felt so fit in years." And to show how pleased they were, everybody dropped a coin or 2 into Paddington's umbrella as they went past. "Well," said Mr. Gruber, when it was all quiet again, "what do you think of that, Mr. Brown?" "I think," said Paddington, "I might become a tour captain when I'm old enough. It seems a very good job for a rainy day, especially if you have your own umbrella." Puss in Boots. Once upon a time there was a miller who had 3 sons called Simon, Sid and Sam. When the miller died, he left the mill to Simon and his donkey to Sid. Sam was left with the miller's cat, Puss. "Silly old cat, what use are you?" said Sam. Imagine Sam's surprise when Puss replied, "Pass me a sack and get me some boots, and you will soon see." So Sam gave his cat a big sack and some red boots. Puss put carrots in the sack and set off to catch a rabbit. Puss went to the castle with his catch and presented it to the king as a gift from the Marquis of Carabas. The king was delighted. The next day, Puss brought Sam to the river. Puss knew the king and princess would drive past soon. "But I can't swim very well," said Sam bravely, as Puss dragged him into the water. "I might drown," shouted Sam. Puss dropped Sam's clothes behind a bramble bush, just as the king's coach drove over the bridge. Puss blocked the path of the king's coach. "Thieves have pushed the Marquis of Carabas into the river," he shouted. "I think he's drowning." The king's servants threw Sam a rope and pulled him onto the bank. They fetched him clean clothes too. Sam looked like a true marquis in his blue boots. Then the king asked him into the coach. Puss was happy his plan was working. He went up the hill and spoke to the workers gathering hay. "Please say this is the Marquis of Carabas's land," whispered Puss to the workers. So they did. The king was dazzled by this news. Puss ran off again, this time to a castle where he knew a big ogre lived. Puss knocked loudly at the gate and a servant let him in. Puss was shown into the ogre's room and climbed up onto the oak table. "So, what is it you need to know?" asked the ogre. Puss said, "I've heard you can turn yourself into anything you choose." "Like something with fur?" snarled the ogre as he turned to a lion. What about a little bird?" purred Puss. "Or a mouse?" The ogre growled, and in a flash he became a mouse. "Now I've got you," shouted Puss loudly, and bounced down from the wall. He pounced on the mouse, and that was the end of the ogre. The servants in the ogre's castle were very relieved. They thought they would be under the ogre's spell forever. To thank Puss, the happy servants organised a perfect party for everyone. The next day, the delighted king offered the Marquis of Carabas his daughter's hand in marriage. So Sam, the miller's son, now a marquis, married the princess. After that, Puss wasn't even expected to chase mice. He made himself an extra big pot of tea and sat down to relax. Thank you for listening, guys. I really hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I'll see you soon.